Hello world, this is Ed. And I want to welcome you to my first ever video. I want to kind of give you a summary of my slow ascent into the unwired technology world. I've never been against or had any problem with technology. I've always kind of kept up with the trends, but I've been a little bit remiss as far as keeping up or learning how to use different things. It all started back, let's say, when I got my first cell phone. That was about 21 years ago. Some of you might remember, it came in a bag, weighed, 8, 10 pounds. Seemed like it weighed 50 after you carried it for a while. And the only thing you could do with it was talk. I mean, there was no texting or nothing. I mean, you had a bag and you had a handset, and that was it. Um, and back then too, you paid your monthly fee like we do today, except you paid 35 cents for every minute that you was on the phone. So you didn't spend much time on the phone if you didn't have to at those kind of prices. And there was no such thing as texting or Twitter or any of this other stuff. You just talked. That was it. And then slowly technology improved and phones got more compact. The next big thing was that phone that was about 10 inches long, weighed about 4 pounds. You see people walk around with this big old thing, had an antenna hanging out of it. And I didn't get one of those. I stuck with my bag phone for a while and finally had one installed in my truck or whatever. But and then here come Motorola with their flip phone. A lot of you might remember those things. They were about 3 inches thick, until you flipped them open, and that was the latest greatest thing in the world, because that thing you could actually you had to hang it on your belt. It was too big to fit in your shirt pocket for the most part, but it was still sweet. That monstrous phone to carry around, and as time goes, obviously phones got smarter and or smaller and smaller, and they did more things, and I kept up with a lot of that. I mean, sometimes by choice, sometimes because the vendor made me do it, or the provider. You have to have this phone because your contract ends or whatever, and that kind of stuff. So it's time changed and phones got kind of smaller. Nowadays they're tiny. They weigh little to nothing, and they're smaller than a pack of cigarettes. I mean, it's kind of amazing what you can do. Then like I said, came the texting and the tweeting and all these other things, and then the smartphones came out. Now I kind of resisted again. I waited about a year before I got one, but finally broke down. The smartphone could do all kinds of stuff. The biggest thing is you could get on the internet and check things, and that was a sweet deal. I always joke with people that I bought that smartphone and it was winning, but I've been gaining ground every day. There's still a vast amount of stuff on that phone that I can't even begin to figure out how to use and the things that it do, but it's a good tool and it's handy and I enjoy the heck out of it. And go figure, I started texting and understood the benefits. I liked it. Before I couldn't figure out why bother texting. Just pick up the phone, call somebody. But again, I get it now. It's a handy thing, and I utilize it just like everybody else. But anyway, enough about the phones. Let's go in the next area, and that was computers. I had a desktop computer, obviously like most people back then. But then I finally decided, I had to, get mobile, right? Okay, so I went and bought me, it was a compact computer back then, old 386, if you can imagine. And this thing, you had to have a bag for it too, because you had to carry all this stuff around with you. There wasn't no, you had, in fact, if you can remember, people can remember, you had 5 1/4 and 3.5 inch floppy drives, and you had to have a lot of cases of drive readers and all that kind of stuff. I can even remember my first storage unit was a fancy cassette tape that was hooked to the computer. Crazy things back in those days. But that thing again weighed about 10 pounds, and you had to lug all that stuff around. So, but I didn't bother. I was a DOS. That was back when DOS was still there, and Windows was just kind of coming in too, and Macintosh was just being kind of introduced back in those days. But again, to me, the computer was a tool. I was in the insurance business. It was the purpose of that thing was to write insurance policies. The internet was there, but it was not something you did a whole lot with, because back then, I'm sure a lot of people don't even remember those things, but it was all dial-up. There was no DSL or cable or satellite connections. It was strictly old dial-up system, and sometimes you got on, sometimes you didn't, and sometimes you could finish before you got thrown off. Those kind of deals. So technology definitely has changed a lot since those days. But I did discover when we discovered our son has autism, and when he was diagnosed with that, the internet become a monstrous tool for us. It was a research. It was like a research bonanza for us because the things that we could find and discover to help him progress through the years has been, just awesome. So, I guess because of my son, I was not going to say forced, but I was encouraged or inspired to get on the internet and start learning how to use some of those things. So it was kind of a good deal. And then, obviously things evolve, the next thing you know, you got MySpace and you got Facebook and you got YouTube and there's forum, and just all kind of stuff that's out there. But again, back to my way of thinking is, why bother? What do you need all that stuff? If you need to talk to somebody, call them or send them an email, because, email's been around since all that time. But, as time goes, you have to kind of learn to adjust. I don't always, I understand the stuff's there, but don't always necessarily understand the needs or whatever. And I've been, business is the same way. Like I said, I've been self-employed for a gazillion years, and in the last 10 years, I've obviously taken advantage of computers and cell phones and helping to, build a business and make an income. So I can't complain about that. But business evolves just like the technology has. The days of holding home meetings and parties and spending hours on the phone are really just not the effective ways of building a business anymore. The wave of the future, as it were, is building your income online. And again, to do that, you need to have some of the tools of the trade, Facebook, doing videos and blogging and all the other things, the forums and all the little parts that go with that. So I feel fortunate in the fact that I understand the migration and the fact that things have to change and you have to keep up with the times. And so I'm like everybody or a lot of people or most people nowadays that are self-employed are looking at online ways of creating the income. And even if you don't, even if you still have the traditional network marketing type business and stuff that are out there. These online tools can help make that business even that much stronger. So, as that were. So, I feel fortunate. Very recently, I joined a team called a Prosperity Team, which is part of the Empire Network. These are guys that make tens of thousands a month, almost insane amount of income that they're making online. And most of these guys actually have products that they sell teaching people how to do these things, and they're making hundreds of thousands a year selling their tools and stuff, these quote unquote gurus, or as it were. But what I've found is all these guys that are part of the Prosperity Team that are doing these same things are providing all this information, this training, this stuff firsthand to those who belong to the team, which is pretty awesome in itself. A guy that and selling a product that he could make $100,000 doing is giving us that information to help us, people like myself who, either have knowledge about how to use all those things or have none and have to learn it from scratch, i.e. me, because, again, what was the point, right, before? So, shame on me for not keeping up, right? You think I'd learn after a while. But the beauty of it is the training and stuff they provide, can teach an old guy like me that's been kind of stubborn to learn to get on board, right? So I will say this, if you're interested in making an extra income, it might be just a few dollars or thousands of dollars or whatever. Maybe you want to fire your boss or maybe retire early, whatever your case is. My suggestion to you is come join us. You got all the help in the world you can need. I believe that this is going to be the ride of your life. The sky's the limit. I know you've heard all the cliches before, but these guys have definitely got it going on. And if they can teach an old dog like me some new tricks, that's pretty good. Obviously, something's working because I'm blogging, and now I'm doing a video, and going to be doing them from now on because that's what That's what they tell us to do. So I figured these guys, the kind of money they make, they must know what they're talking about. So I'm on board. I'm gonna follow them all the way through. So I hope you'll come join us. I hope you've enjoyed this little video of my trek through the unwired world of technology, and I look forward to meeting you later on again. This is, like I said, the first of many videos. So this is Ed signing off, and I'll see you on the next go round.